Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast powered by Closers.io, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead for them and their companies. I'm your host, Ammar, and in each episode, we uncover the stories behind impactful ventures, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future growth. Today, we are absolutely thrilled to be joined by Steve Rix, founder and CEO of PlayLab, a company redefining the future of work by using play to drive engagement, well-being, and creativity. Steve is a seasoned expert in human development whose pivotal moment on the beach sparked a mission to weave play into corporate culture, helping major organizations globally become more innovative and resilient. Steve, welcome to Founders Future.
It is an absolute delight and privilege to be here and looking forward to playing around with work and concepts that I think are far overdue in the workplace. For far too long, the work-play relationship has been convoluted to be opposites, which polarizes the thought. When the reality is, I hope by the end of our session, your listeners will think, wow, play can actually fuel work and help create a far more productive culture with a high greater retention rate and happier humans. And all of those are a win for a business owner.
I love that. I'm excited to dive in. I always like to start from the beginning. So take us back on a trip down memory lane to before you started PlayLab. What were you doing at the time? And then what was really the motivation behind starting the company?
Yeah, this is an easy story to tell because every time I tell it, I just get, I don't know, recharged as to how important the mission is. In short form, I had arrived here in Hawaii, where I've lived for the last 11 years. And I'd come with a heavy heart. I'd come with a heavy heart because I'd recently gone through the end of a relationship that I thought shouldn't end, AKA a divorce. It was very difficult to accept. And I had been ruminating on the first, say, 45 years of my life, particularly the first 25 professionally. So from 20 to 25, or 45, I had two divorces. I'd had two multi-million dollar business failures.
Wow.
And frankly, the only common denominator was me. So good, bad, or indifferent, I had gone into a really dark hole of depression. And I had spun this thing that my life was done. My value to the future was over. Like, I'm sure some of our listeners have probably had a moment where they felt like the imposter syndrome was so big that nothing could get them out of that dark space. And I know that was the case for me when, frankly, two little kids came up and they asked me a question that changed everything. They just said, "Hey, mister, do you want to play?" I'd been sitting on the beach for 90 straight days looking at the ocean and having this wrestle, not talking with anyone. And when they asked that question, I couldn't say no. You could see out of the peripheral their parents were tourists. And so I thought, why not give their parents a little break? We danced in the waves for 10, 15 minutes. We built what they thought was an epic sandcastle. And like that, they were gone. But what remained, I will never, ever forget, which was my heart beating out of my chest, a smile on my face. What was an empty tank emotionally seemed like it was spilling over. What were brick walls or closed doors mentally, now I just had full possibility cognitively. And I asked myself a simple question. If play on accident and in an instant could create that kind of change in my biochemistry and in my psychology, what would happen if I experimented with play for everything in my life? And that was, if you will, the birthplace or the origin to PlayLab.
I love that. That's so powerful. And I appreciate you sharing the story because I think knowing the story behind it helps us resonate with the message a lot more and really connect to it. It's like you were saying, you're connecting to that deep why, that mission of what am I here to do? So I would love to give the listeners more context into PlayLab as an organization. Let's start off with who is your ideal customer? Who do you love to work with? And then what are the different offers and services that you provide?
Sure. Having started 6 other businesses in the past, That question is one of the key questions anybody should be asking anyone starting a business, right? Who's the target audience? And if I can just put a big asterisk by it and say it's been very difficult to find that audience because the audience is not a particular industry. It's not a particular demographic of society as far as age or location. The audience, the target is almost always driven by one major thing,
Yeah.
an ownership or leadership team that says they're willing to invest money in the well-being of the people who work for them. And by
Mm,
invest money, I don't simply mean invest in, okay, let's make you better at your particular craft, trade, skill that you do within the business to like as a leader be the cause of some life altering change in their life. And we see companies like that. The particular brand that comes to mind is Virgin, which is owned by Richard Branson,
yeah.
but that's a very unusual thing. But that, of course, is the centerpiece or the cornerstone, however you'd like to phrase it,
Yeah.
of a great client relationship for us. As far as products and services that we bring them, we curate a number of experiments and
Mm,
experiences
okay.
that activate amusement and innovation in the workplace. And when you do that, now all of a sudden it gives you an opportunity to wake your people up to possibility.
Very interesting. So you're physically going into there and curating these experiments slash experiences. Walk us through, can you give us a couple examples and help us understand, are these like 1 day workshops? Are these a couple days? What does that
Great
look like?
question. Make it even easier than that for business owners. It's a 1 hour experiment. And
Okay.
while we prefer to do it in person, not everybody wants to pay for us to travel wherever they are because
Yeah.
I have a team here on the East Coast. But notwithstanding, we've created a 1 hour virtual event done in a setting very similar to what we're in right now. And in that Zoom environment, we literally take people on a murder mystery who done it, like who
Yeah, yeah.
stole play from the workplace, dun, 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 kind of theme. And in that, we're engaging with their sense of imagination. We're using 5, 6, sometimes as many as 7 or 8 different little aspects of play, everything from sketching out what it might look like, the villain that stole the culture of play, to literally using technology. We've got several apps that we've built that we integrate into the experience so that by the end of that hour, when we've played with the entire team, the one thing that's clear is we showed them what it was like to have fun at work for just an hour.
Mm,
More importantly, we extract over 30 unique data points that we know are authentic because they were playing. It's not like they got asked to take an employee engagement survey where less than 30% of people even participate today. It
yeah.
was an opportunity to do things that were fun, but out of that fun come 30 vital statistics like their level of enthusiasm and engagement, their propensity to be the problem versus the problem solver, their willingness to connect the culture versus disrupt it. All of that data comes out, and it comes out in forms that are really useful for leadership without taking away the anonymity of the participants. So it's a lot of fun. And it's our core talking point because then really from there, our whole focus is teaching leaders how to use those same play-like tools and
Mm,
experimentation in how they bridge the gap for the future of work. Because
wow.
I'm sure we can agree on one thing: the future of work looks nothing like the past. It's changing so rapidly.
100%, especially with COVID and the advent of working online remotely. You don't have the same culture feel as you once did in the office. So I could see how this is so powerful for re-energizing the employees and getting them excited again and getting them just in a good mood that can spill over to other aspects of their work, but also enriching the culture. Because it's not like it's a one and done thing. You're also teaching and equipping the leaders with the tools necessary to be able to do that. I
Well,
love
if you think about it, if you, here's a question that I'd ask, excuse me, to anyone in your audience who's a manager or a leader: how much of your time are you actually spending leading or managing versus resolving conflicts versus clarifying somebody else's job versus cheering somebody up versus getting somebody re-engaged. When I really get to do what I'm supposed to do, it means the people I'm leading or managing are functioning at a high level. And
Mm,
so when you have the opportunity as leaders to say to the people you're leading, your voice matters, and here's how we're going to prove it,
yeah,
that goes a long way, because what is the biggest reason why people don't actually give real information in employee engagement surveys anymore? A, they don't trust that it's going to change, and B, they don't trust that they can be protected in anonymity. And
yeah,
so creating psychologically safe workspaces come by creating socially playful environments, because when we are playful, we are far more conscious of who's around us and how we behave and operate, so everybody's happy. And
yeah.
these are such fundamental social things that we forget them until we experiment with them. And that'd be the last point I'd really drive home, is like, everything we do is an experiment on purpose, because it's not just being playful, but it's the experimentation with it that actually engages the body's neuroreceptors. Like when I get curious, I have a dopamine dump. That's a reward or pleasure chemical that comes. And if I can create dopamine dumps by getting people working differently, everybody wins.
100%. I could not agree.
Here's my favorite tagline. Until you're as excited to show up on a Monday morning as you are to leave on a Friday night, PlayLab has yet to do their job with you. So that's our benchmark.
Yeah, powerful. Let's shift a little bit to the back end of the business. So when it comes
Sure.
to acquiring customers and generating more lead flow for your business, what does your process look like there?
Yeah, it's a great question. Right now, one of the things we talk about is who can be loudest where we want to be heard most. And right now, where we want to be heard most is in the corridors of chief people officers. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that official position, but over the last 7 years in LinkedIn, it's gone from 7 or 8,000 people to over 70,000 people with that designation. So it's a new genre, but it's a people facing office. So we're spending a lot of time attempting to be in front of them, whether it's in events or in places like LinkedIn, where you'll see them a lot. We spend time with the good hallways of SHRM, these organizations that help human resources, although we're less time spent there than before because HR is really burnt out. And then we spend time with leaders in general of companies that maybe don't particularly have as large or as robust of a staff, and yet they have such a unique culture. They're growing quickly and they don't want to lose that rate of growth. One of the things we have to do is tell them that in order to keep your people having fun, you've got to invest in them. The places we hang out to have these conversations, and they happen in the form of 30-minute roundtables. They happen in the form of literally, how playful is your environment, a little 2-minute survey that then can lead into a freemium offer of a full vertical for the whole company as to how playful the company is. And then all that leads back to that playground live. And we tell people, if you're not willing to invest at least 1 hour in learning about your people, you're not the company for us. And that's
Yeah.
okay.
It sounds like a lot of it is going out there, shaking hands, meeting people face to face, and stuff like LinkedIn as well. And you've got the lead magnets. It's interesting because I had somebody earlier on today who was telling me similar things in terms of his lead generation. He also added on referrals, which I'm assuming you use as well. I'm curious because he expressed frustrations with the inconsistencies and the lack of predictability that can bring in a business. So I'm curious how you navigate that and what your experience has been.
Yeah, I think I would be not being truthful if I didn't say I can echo that sentiment. And here's why. Because to start with, we're asking people to do something they've never done before. That's
Yep.
just, no matter how open you are, that's just going to take a little more time. There's that. And then B, there's always something more important than people. And even our best clients don't want to tell us that, but it's the old conditioning of being driven by the bottom line. So we have a fantastic CFO. He's called our chief financial officer, making money fun. But the point being is he literally helps our prospective clients see the time value of money by saying, look, this is not something you want to delay because here's what your attrition cost is. Here's what your recruiting cost is. Here's what your low productivity cost or low engagement cost means to you. So by us putting price tags on what happens when they lose a human, it's created a greater sense of awareness about what has to be done and how it has to be done.
Yeah.
So you are right. We get a lot of referrals, and I'm very happy just to say currently we're working north of 100 opportunities, of which 30, I would say, are mission critical, and probably still our pipeline will close about 10 every 6 months. Now, that's on full consulting packages where we've been asked to go in and change the environment. It's a much better close rate when we're just talking about doing a playground live and then having discussions about how we change. I think anytime you bring anything new to the market, it's going to take time and it's going to be a little frustrating, but I know what happened to me when those little kids made a difference in my life. So every morning I just wake up and say, all right, gonna have to be a little more patient. And eventually that deal flow will just really explode. But we're getting close, at least at least with our company.
I appreciate you sharing that. And I definitely think it's an important mission for you to stay on. It sounds like to me, really, the front end of the funnel in terms of bringing in more leads predictably, consistently, is really the bottleneck here. Is that fair to say?
If we're saying bottleneck, the front end of the funnel is where we want to get as many people as possible because the price point is only $2,500 to $10,000 for that 1 hour experience, right? If I could have 100 of those a month, functionally, it would be probably pretty tricky to pull off because they're 1 hour, that'd be 3 a day. So realistically, if I had one a day, that would push us to the overwhelming point where the bottleneck would be such. We're not there yet.
Got it. Got it. What do you think the bottleneck is right now?
I think the bottleneck for PlayLab exists with the general decision making and prioritization of what we do. 100 open opportunities, everyone has said, we will work with you. How we get them from we will work with you and very busy to actually working with us, that's the biggest bottleneck. I think, and what we've come to learn is our sales cycle is probably at least 180 days as a result of that, which in the business to business world is not a uncommon number.
Yeah. Walk me through your vision. When you think about where you want to take the company, let's say 12 months from now, what specific revenue targets, performance targets are you aiming for?
Over the next 12 months, we accomplish 100 playground lives and are able to get just a small fraction of those into what we call placeholting agreements. We'll do north of $1 million in revenue, which will be really great because a little more background, while the company's been around 10 years, 7 of those years were just one-on-one coaching and consulting. 2.5 of those years were spent in research and development with investment dollars to create programs that we could reach entire companies. So we've just now been in this sales cycle of attempting to reach entire companies for the last 6 months. In one respect, very encouraged. In another respect, we want all this to happen yesterday.
Impatience. No, I'm the same way. So it sounds like it's two-pronged. One is getting a lead per day or an opportunity per day would be great. And so more leads in through the door. And then from there, shrinking the sales cycle as much as possible and communicating with them to a point where you can increase conversions. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, where they all of a sudden say, hey, look, the people have to be the priority. We have a wonderful company here locally that has north of 200 people They have a very high attrition rate, a low productivity rate. We've shown them a pathway to how they'll be able to change that significantly in the next 6 months. And still, they're committed to doing one other thing before they get to us. And yet it's the same darn thing they did in the past. And sometimes it's just hard to get people off what they're already invested in and willing to invest in something else. So in situations like that, we patiently wait and then put ourselves in the best position to say, I told you so, without telling you I told you.
Yeah, for sure. Let me ask you a couple more questions because I know we're
Sure.
going to wrap up soon. Walk me through, if you were talking to new entrepreneurs and you can give them a piece of advice that you wish you knew when you were first starting off. So you know it now as a business owner, but you didn't know it at that time. What would that be?
Having started 7 businesses, each of them had maybe different answers to that. But I think probably, and this might not be what they expect to hear, but I think it's honest. Starting any business is a difficult proposition. That's why so few people do it. Being able to start it and achieve success to any degree is an even more daunting proposition. And at the core of all of that, I think, comes the question of self mastery. So, what I mean by that is on any given day, right now, I'm a bit overweight, and it's something I've been working on. Haven't always been that way, but I'm that way right now. At other times in my life, I've had countless dollars because of success. And then the entrepreneurial roller coaster goes up or goes down. You might have relationships that are just the perfect way they're supposed to be. But because we're human, there's always something to work on in the human experiment as far as self mastery, and giving yourself a measure of grace and ease and patience. Not let yourself off the hook. I got to lose these pounds I've got, right? I want great relationships. It's my responsibility to be fiscally responsible, right? All these pieces of the puzzle, without self mastery and the patience to create it and the people around you to support it, you become your job. You become your creation. And that is not healthy at all. So the biggest thing I would say to anyone listening today is there's nothing more important than your self-love, your self-care, and mastering that, because how I am in anything generally is how I am in everything. And if I can master me, there's a much greater potential that I can master my business.
Steve, that was beautifully said. It reminds me of a quote that I heard where it says, "There's no such thing as business problems. There's only personal problems that manifest in your business or that show up in your business."
It's so true.
Yeah,
It's so true.
I love that. Beautiful way to end the episode. What is the best way for people to reach out to you?
I'm an open book, so I have no problem giving out my cell and my email. My email's easy. It's steve@experimentwithplay.com. And my cell is 808-321-0729. My singular ask on the cell is whenever anybody has reached out to me that way, please send me a text. I just heard you on podcast XYZ, and I would love to have a chat with you. So that way I can identify where you're coming from, and I'm not necessarily picking up phone call after phone call. But yeah, those would be the 2 easiest ways for me to provide support or insight, encouragement to anyone else.
Awesome. Steve, thank you so much for your time today.
It's been a pleasure.
So that wraps up another insightful episode of Founders Future. To our listeners, if you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And if you're a business owner and you're looking to scale your business and really enhance your sales and marketing efforts, visit closers.io to discover how we can support your growth journey. Until then, Keep on climbing.